There we go. Hello. Happy early Apollo birthday, everybody.
Woohoo!
Okay. This is so beautiful. Do you guys need me to store this when you're done with it? I'll put this up outside the cave. Oh, yeah.
So if you had a pin, would that pop?
I think it's inflatable.
It's inflatable.
But it's really convincing, even this close. I so want to climb that and touch it. I probably shouldn't. Okay, so Mary, I have a question for you.
Yes.
I'm leaving town on Monday to go to D.C. to participate in the celebrations that are happening for the 50th celebration of Apollo, and I'm getting to go through the Smithsonian, and they're giving us access.
Yeah.
And I had this experience at Johnson a couple of years ago where I visited for the day and I saw some old space gloves. And I got so excited about them. They said, well, let's take you to the cabinet of really old space gloves. And it was like this cabinet no one had opened in years. Yeah. And as I was looking at it, I was thinking, this is the kind of shit that Mary gets to see. And so I'm curious if someone says you have total access to the Smithsonian, what is your advice for me about what I should ask to do?
At the Smithsonian?
Yeah, I know. See, it's an embarrassment of riches.
Oh, you know, the Smithsonian has this, it may be off-site, but it's there's two collections, a wet and a dry, of all the mammalian penises in the universe.
The most Mary Roach answer I can possibly imagine.
There's the baculi, which is the bone, the penis bone. So
I have a couple.
Yeah, what? You have a couple?
It's actually a replica.
Yes.
I was getting a tour.
I have one too.
Do you?
Yes, I have two. What are yours?
Well, I was getting a tour of behind the scenes at the Museum of Natural History in New York, and there was a walrus baculum. It was about 20 inches long that had been used as a pointer by a professor for 40 years, and it was written on it. So I took a close-up photo of the inscription and spent months finding an exact match for it and I bought the bone clone walrus bacula, but it's shit. And I eventually found one at a thrift store in Valencia, and then I carefully hand-lettered the same inscription on it, and I made a prop replica of a walrus baculum.
Of course you did. I was told it was a walrus penis bone, and in fact it was the columnist John Carroll's penis bone, and I got it at a white elephant party, and his wife tried to get it back at the end of the night, and my husband's like, no, I got this for Mary. It's Mary's penis bone now. And then, and I heard that the Usyk was a war club, and I was like, and my penis bone, it's like that. And I found out later it's a seal. It's like a harbor seal or something. I was sold a false bill of penis bone goods. Anyway, and I have a rat penis bone as well. It's very tiny.
Rat?
Rat, yeah, rat.
Little rat lipstick.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So now you're reminding me, we were ostensibly supposed to come up here and talk about spacesuits, and you're reminding me of my favorite spacesuit story that I have, and it's the kind of story NASA doesn't like to tell. I got to fly in
There are a lot of those.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
You've told me a couple. So I got to fly in the U-2 spy plane, and I got to wear one of the David Clark suits.
Yeah.
And I wore a UCD, a urine collection device.
Yes, right on your leg, right?
No, it actually was a tube that connected and went out. Oh, yeah, you're right, inside pocket. Yeah, right here. So they give you this conical rubber condom.
Yes.
And they ask you to cut it where it will fit right over you. And they actually have a speech where they say, don't cut it on the pride side.
Yes, yes.
They said, you want a good fit.
Yes.
And so then I wore it on the plane. I did not use it while I was on my flight, but afterwards I know Chris Hadfield, and I was telling him about it because I felt a little like an astronaut. And he said, well, we don't use those anymore. And I was like, why not? And he said, well, because after 5 or 6 hours, you can't tell if it's on. And then there was an astronaut who had fallen off, and he didn't know, and he urinated into his spacesuit during a walk, and the urine, of course, vaporized inside his suit and coated the inside of his visor.
Yeah.
And so he had to use his own face as a squeegee in order to be able to see to complete the spacewalk. That is a mission.
Wow. I heard, and I'm told that this is true, that those the urine collection device, the UCD, the condom part of it came in small, medium, and large, and that no one would order a small. And astronauts were like yeah, I'll have the large, right? And they were leaking all over. So they changed them to large, and extra, extra. Swear to God.
Once you put on the UCD, in order so that it has clear flow, you wear this large phallic thing over that like Velcros to your underpants. So you're standing there in long underwear with this giant rubber thing sticking out, and everyone's looking each other in the eye. All the pilots and my crew is like, ah. I'm curious that we had talked earlier before you were doing the book about the book about our guts.
Gulp.
Gulp. Sorry.
Yes.
I knew it was a G word. And I told you the story that George W's poop, that I had heard that that the American president's poo is a state secret.
Yes.
And you were not able to confirm that story.
No, I have now.
You have?
I have now. Yes, there was actually an entrapment device installed I'm forgetting which head of state, but I'll give you the details. But yes, that in fact, there's a whole paper on the intelligence service and biomedical collection and what they can learn by entrapping the feces of a visiting head of state in their hotel room. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is my entry to ask you about other stories you weren't able to corroborate, to put in books. Is there a future Mary Roach book of all the unconfirmed, really awesome, weird stories you've collected?
You know, there's not, but there will be. There should be. Yeah. But I just yesterday, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. I think you know what? I need to, Adam was going to bring, as you know, Adam makes these amazing, high fidelity, super accurate replicas.
Replica spacesuits, yes.
Replica spacesuits.
Not good for space, but they're awesome for me.
Yes, and he was going to, but they're on display in the Museum of Modern Art and the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum, so we're shit out of luck. But anyway, so because he was going to bring one of the amazing made suits, I made my own replica of, this is an Apollo era. I'm not very good at replicas, but
I'm so sorry.
I've made something. Hold on.
I love that your backpack also matches my Apollo jacket.
I know.
Was that on purpose? No. Yes.
All right. Okay, this is an Apollo.
Gosh.
This is a replica. It's not very good because I don't have the finger caught, but this is Apollo era fecal collection bag. All right?
Wow.
Okay. And I made it myself.
That's beautiful.
And it's peel and stick. And, and the way it works.
Did you actually use double
yes,
stick?
No.
It's a functional replica.
Yes, you can put it on. Yeah. And so what the astronaut, because in the Gemini and Apollo era, there was no toilet. There's no space toilet. So this is what you had. And you would peel off, that's sticky, and you would just stick this on there, and then I didn't do the finger caught because it's too complicated. You would have done the finger caught, which is just basically a place to stick your finger, because when you don't have gravity, you don't have good separation. And that good separation is the holy grail of the NASA waste management team.
It's the holy grail of every morning for me.
So you needed to put two fingers in and coax it down away from your body, and then mix in some germicidal material. And I also didn't do that, which you would have done as well. It looks like a little soy sauce packet, and they would open it and put it in.
Oh, and it's like an enzymatic thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I just adjusted my bra strap on live stream. Anyway.
That is magnificent. I love that.
So yeah, and there's a photograph in my book from the 1970s of some dude in plaid pants bending over with his ass sticking out, showing how it's done. Well, obviously, you wouldn't have pants on, but you would stick this to your bare ass, and it never stuck well, and it pulled hair, and they hated it, and they would do everything they could to constipate themselves and just not crap for the entire mission. Yeah.
So, two things. I have pooped into a bag before. It is one of the least dignified things I've ever done, and that's a fairly low bar. It turns out the trick is, right, I'm trying to remember.
Why did you need?
Holding it open like, we had to test my poo for its methane content for our episode about farts.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, we had I won't tell that story. But I was at Johnson a couple years ago, and astronaut Kjell Lindgren was giving me a tour, and I got to climb in the shuttle, which is totally amazing how tiny it is.
Oh, yeah.
And you see the bathroom there, and he says, "Have a seat on the toilet, and I'll show you something." I sit on the toilet, and he turns on the video camera that you use.
Oh, I've sat on that.
To guide.
Yeah, no, I know. Yes.
And so I'm watching this video camera, and I'm like, wow. And I look up, and I see this look on his eyes, and he goes, yeah, you get to know yourself real well.
There's one of those toilet cams in the training area. Because if you sit on that toilet, you're not sitting, you're hovering in close proximity, and you need to get your angle of approach right. Otherwise, it's a small hole. It's
a difficult docking maneuver.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So they have a closed circuit TV, so you sit on the toilet, and there's the TV, and there's a light. You're seeing your asshole right there. It's like something you're really familiar with but have never really seen from that perspective, and I imagine kind of like seeing the Earth from space.
The most curious part is that they autoplay the Blue Danube while you're doing it.
Yes, it's soothing, encouraging.
I love that you made this beautiful craft project.
Yeah, thank you. I was, and I did it myself. My husband Ed is a very talented maker, tidy, measure 5 times, cut once, and I'm not. And he kept trying to, he was like, you might want, I'm like, I'm doing this myself. So this is actually just Scotch tape.
It looks very good.
Thank you.
I also have difficulty. A round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
For Mary's self-stick poop bag.
The fecal bag, yes. Yes.
What do you want to bet there's already a YouTube channel of people using those?
I didn't look for that very reason. I didn't need to feel shamed about my fecal bag. I wanted to feel good about my fecal bag. The astronauts hated this. But in fact, it wasn't the worst. The worst design, they never do this, but it was called the fecal glove. And that was kind of
big catcher's mitt.
That was kind of like when your dog takes a crap and you pick it up and then you turn the sleeve inside out. It was basically that. You put it on your hand, crap in your hand, and then pull it inside out. There you go. That was.
I'm comforted by the warmth of my dog's output every day.
I
love him. I find it, it's a nice one, Huxley.
It's a nice one. Do you know what I found? And we're going to get off this tangent real soon now. But
I don't see any reason to.
The reason, what I was starting to say before when I felt like I had to introduce and show off my fecal bag was that yesterday, because I was looking for a photograph of this, I came upon this amazing thing on the NASA website, which is documentation of all of the turds from the Apollo mission by whether it was command module pilot, lunar module pilot, or commander, and how much they weighed. So, I mean, it's all there. It's kind of astounding. And they brought them all back.
That's
and
what they had to have weighed them on Earth, because you can't weigh them in space.
That's right. He is so smart. They brought them back.
What?
Yes. They're not on the surface of the moon, which I had assumed. They just dumped them with the camera and everything else.
So what did they do? Do they still exist? Are they
Yes.
in some refrigerator?
Yes. There's this guy at NASA who told me one time he was wandering around Johnson Space Center, and they had given him the code to go into one of the labs. And he realized that code worked on a lot of different doors. So he wandered around and he went into this room, and there was this freezer with a blinking light. And he opened the freezer, and there were the Apollo archival turds. They were all there. And he said he tried to go back, but he never found the door. It was like Narnia. Anyway, yeah, they're there. They're all there.
You could unpack what they had eaten days before. It was like polar
Yes.
ice cores. You could
Yes.
determine the diet from the 60s.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's
Totally. I know. So, okay, enough about that. Let's talk about some suits or some.
Well, yeah, as you said, my four best suits, my Mercury, my Aces, my 2001, and what's the last one? Jesus, I'm forgetting all of a sudden. My EMU, which I haven't actually even shown publicly, are all now installed at the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art for an exhibit that opens on the 17th, next Wednesday night, called Far Out, and it's all about architecture of space habitats.
Oh, cool.
And the coolest thing about a spacesuit is it's a spaceship.
It's a habitat.
It's
a really tiny human-shaped room. Oh, yeah.
And I love the fact that when they make the bladder, which is the actual bladder layer, the airtight layer, they call it an anthropomorphic balloon.
They do?
Yes.
That's fantastic.
That's the line item is listed. Of course that's what it is. It's an
Are they doing, as the exhibit, are they doing layer by layer? Can you see the anthropomorphic balloon blown up?
They are not. It's more about the sort of the cultural perspective of what space might look like, the way we have perceived the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
And then there are some real and some fake suits there in the middle. It's frankly, putting things on mannequins is one of the worst things I do.
Yes.
It is so hard to make something look natural.
Yes.
And I don't think I've ever actually fully succeeded at it.
Yeah.
And so that was one of my requirements is like, I can't mount this. You guys have to take that off.
You know what's harder than that?
What's that?
What I heard when I was, and I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no. We're up here to have a conversation.
When I was working on Stiff, my first book, someone was doing a cadaver test, and the cadaver was wearing leotard, like tights, I said, "How do you dress a cadaver?" And he said, "It's very, very hard." Yeah, it's because they're.
Yeah, they don't want to move in the way that you.
They're floppy. Maybe as hard as dressing a mannequin.
No, I have had to dress a couple of rescue Randys. They are the fully movable 180-pound fireman dummies, and they're a nightmare to dress.
Yeah, right.
That's why it's really great to give that to the young people to do. Yes. They can manhandle that.
Yeah.
This exhibit, I just saw it yesterday. I went over and saw it, and it's just really exciting to have people like working on my stuff.
Yeah.
It legitimizes it in a way, because all this is just like my emotional support costumes, you know?
Yeah.
They just sit near me, and I'm happy that they're there. So it's really exciting that they're going out into the public and kind of becoming their own thing.
They're amazing. I mean, when you do a replica, it's exact.
Well, the thing is that I don't ever finish. So it's exact enough for this Comic-Con, but then when it comes back, like, I remade all the connectors on my Apollo. In fact, actually, because I'm taking my Apollo suit to DC, I actually installed a cooling system, and I connected it to one of the front connectors, the air connector, and I ran a set of 5 tubes, the same way NASA does, back to the upper back to blow air through my bubble helmet and keep it cool.
Holy crap, yeah.
We're going to try it out in DC in July.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes.
yeah, amazing.
I could just end up being a sweaty ball using my own face as a squeegee for my urine.
The visor thing, there was a, NASA did just what-ifed everything, including if you got space motion sickness and you're in your EVA suit, your spacewalking suit, and you threw up. That's a serious thing. First of all, when you don't have gravity, surface tension, so it clings, and it tends to cling to nostrils, and so you can't. I mean, so
Was there an emesis port on the helmet? There wasn't.
No, you would no. That's why it was so dangerous. That's why they would scrub an EVA. They would cancel it if somebody was feeling like they might vomit. But they simmed it using, I love this, the simulated vomit was Progresso vegetable soup.
Absolutely perfect.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. But they what-ifed it all. They what-ifed everything. Yeah.
When during Mythbusters, I got my diving certification, and that meant, and I got it specifically to host Shark Week, and so I certified down in Monterey, like a lot of Northern Californians do, and then my 6th dive was in a great white shark cage in South Africa.
Yeah.
Where the swells were like 5 feet, so it was kind of like being in a dice cup.
Yeah.
And just before I went in, and we're wearing these masks called AGA masks, and they're built so you can actually talk in them. So they have a microphone and you can communicate with other divers. And they're terrible masks to wear as a diver because they have all this extra buoyancy and they kind of pull your head up and they make your neck sore.
Yeah.
And just before I went in, Jamie said, because he knows I have a weak stomach, just so you know, you can throw up right into that thing.
Okay.
And so I'm in the cage, I see a shark a little bit, but then these swells are really bad, and sure enough, it happens.
It did.
And so I fully let go into the AGA mask, and just at the end of that exhale, I guess you could call it, I'm thinking, boy, I hope Jamie was right. And then I take this beautiful breath of clean air. It was stunning.
Wait, they sucked it out?
That mask is built to take it.
Wow.
Yeah, it was fabulous.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was,
See,
and then I was
NASA
like,
did
time to
not
get me
have
out. Get me the hell out of here, please.
Wow. Did you get on the fighter jet, did you get sick on that?
Yes, in the F-18.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even do it
No.
because of that.
So that is the one experience I had. I threw up 7 times.
On the fighter jet?
On the fighter plane.
Fighter plane, yes.
And so I pulled 7
times.
7 times each flight. I flew 3 times.
Jeez.
And I pulled 7.5 Gs, and I didn't pass out. I pulled 7.5 Gs and did pass out, but I also pulled 7.5 Gs and didn't pass out. This is the one experience I've ever had that throwing up constantly did not detract from my enjoyment one iota.
Wow. I have a question.
Yeah.
Is it, when the stuff you're throwing up weighs 7 times as much, is it harder to throw it up, number one? And number two, when it hits, is it
Well, no, I had,
really
the
heavy?
thing is, I had a lot of bags.
You had what?
They knew
You
that I
had
had a
what?
lot of barf bags.
Oh, barf bags.
And it turns out that's what all those pockets on the flight suit are for.
Oh, that's what they're for?
Yeah, there's one
Oh.
here, one here, one here, one here. And the one thing I did notice is when I'm pulling 7.5 Gs, I have a picture of this. At that point, I weigh 1,500 pounds. And my face looked exactly like my dad.
Yes. Yes.
But specifically my dad in the throes of Alzheimer's.
Oh,
like
God.
the worst possible dad image to see in yourself.
Oh.
And then I passed out.
Wow. 7.5. Wow.
I've never been in, the F-18 is, Chris Hadfield flies over 200 different airplanes. I know, he makes the rest of us look lazy.
No.
And he said the F-18 is the one that is so intuitive to fly, you can actually forget that you're flying. It's just an extension of your body. And I've never been in a more precise, amazing machine.
Yeah.
My pilot was telling me, my last flight was as a chase plane instead of the lead, which was really neat. Because you got to, when you're watching these maneuvers happen from one plane back and you can see these 2 planes moving in perfect tandem, I'm like, how do you do this? And he's like, I'm just lining up the eye of the Hornet with this part of his wing.
Yeah, right. I've heard that's, you're just looking at the, right, which if the lead guy passes out and flies into the earth, that's bad.
All of you are going the same direction.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's, Doesn't happen very often.
Actually, yeah, Hadfield had a story about flying with the Thunderbirds and passing out in a roll. And I was like, what was that like? And he goes, well, you know, sometimes you wake up from an afternoon nap and you have that kind of great feeling of like, oh, that was a really satisfying nap. And he said, I opened my eyes and I was going 600 miles an hour. And the fact was, he was heading on an upward trajectory, which is the reason he's alive.
Yeah.
And he took back control of the aircraft and landed. I know, the rest of us feel, it seems lazy.
Did you take some good drugs to not throw up?
Dramamine. Dramamine works great for me. I've tried scopolamine, but that's too intense.
No. Because for the vomit comment, they give you scopolamine.
It didn't work for me. I vomited the moment we were done with all of the necessary footage.
On this one?
Yeah,
and
we weren't allowed, the one requirement for getting to fly for free was that we weren't allowed to call it the vomit comment, use the word vomit at any time during the shoot.
I know, they tell you that, they take you aside and they go, we're calling it, this is the plane that they simulate weightlessness, right? Zero gravity. They said, we're calling it the weightless wonder, which pretty much makes you vomit.
Did you throw up?
I did, yeah, I did, and then I wrote about it in the book, and I called it the vomit comment.
I had this experience as I finished the footage we had to do. I was wearing a spacesuit. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And then we were finished, and I was like, oh, here it comes. I grabbed the barf bag, and I threw up into it. And then I looked down and realized there's nothing keeping my vomit in this bag.
Yes.
I better physically close it because we are weightless.
That's right. In fact, that's a problem with the toilets because, here we go again. All right, but it's
always back to the fundament for you.
There is technical terminology, okay, say on the shuttle toilet, because the way it closes when you're done, there's a sliding door. But if you aren't being vigilant, the hovering material can make its way up and it's called fecal decapitation. Yes, it is, ladies and gentlemen.
This has got to be the title of your book for uncorroborated stories.
Yeah.
I think we have reached the end of our time.
Probably.
Please give a hand to my friend and amazing writer, Mary Roach.
Adam Savage!
Thank you guys so much. Let's do this again.